Possible action, financial assistance agreement, Town Farm, Straska, Brownfield grant.
Ray, our guest speaker is here.
Ray's our
to-
farmer in chief tonight.
He's our
record, Ray-
brownfield in chief.
For the record, Ray Carpentino, Farm Division.
Doesn't
Town
sound
of
on.
Rocky Hill.
Ray, is that on? Yep, okay.
So what we have is your typical requirement for every state grant to enter into an assistance agreement. For the Brownfield grant that we received, or will be receiving, for the remediation activity for Section B of the former Straska Farm, that being the house and where the barn will be and all of the public activities. We had Zuvik Engineering, our LEP, come up with estimates for the remediation and for the various filings that are required to deep for the remediation activities and for certificate of approvals and completions for the remediation, and for site engineering for the barn construction and the parking area, and for engineering of the remediation and for the construction of the barn and the parking area. That totaled $830,000. So we'll be funded up to that amount. But again, it's contingent upon the town entering into the financial assistance agreement.
That's all of it? All
That's
right.
all I have.
So
Questions?
basically, it's just the council authorizes the town to enter into this
Right,
agreement
right.
in the eyes of the state.
Questions for Ray?
Are we under any, under the terms of the agreement, is there any timeline that the town is on to complete the remediation? I'm sure we want to get this done sooner than later, but similar to other grants we've had in the past, there's a certain number of months. Anything like that with this one?
There will be a timeline. They'd like to see things done within 2 years. This, according to the state, is a relatively simple project. Does not involve redevelopment, remediation of a mill into residential units like many of the brownfield projects. This is fairly straightforward.
Thanks.
No question. Ray, maybe you mentioned it and I missed it. Does that also include the removal of the structures on the property?
That includes the demolition of the house, the hazard, the remediation of lead paint and asbestos, yes.
Okay. And I know Chris just asked the question, how long do we have from the state to complete it? But what's an estimate in time to actually complete the project?
I would say 18 months, like a typical construction project.
Okay.
I think we should give ourselves up to 18 months.
So definitely within the 2-year period, and
Yeah.
is there any possibility that we could move further along into next year's pre-farming season?
I think the first step we can do immediately is probably demo the house.
Okay,
Because very soon we can get Zuvik Engineering out to the site to continue testing the areas that they need to continue to test. There's some areas that they couldn't get to. So we can get that done and work on remediation and demolition of the building. Get those out of the way first.
okay. Very good. So we need to make a motion to accept the financial assistance.
So with that, I will make a motion to accept the Brownfield Financial Assistance Agreement for 374 New Britain Avenue, formerly the Straska property.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I did have one other question. Anything in terms of matching funds that the town needs to contribute to get the full amount?
We contributed $7.2 million already.
Right, okay. But to get the additional funds, no.
No, I mean, that was clearly stated in the grant application as a town contribution.
And it's in the agreement.
Yeah,
on
it is in the agreement.
Breakout of expenditures and revenues.
Excellent.
Sorry, thought I turned that off. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Rating agency update.
I think I included the front page, and you should have got a copy of the full 6-7 page report from Standards and Poor's on our rating agency call, in which the town held its current rating at AA+ stable for bonds and SP-1+ for the short-term bans, as well as an overall rating. We continue to hold at AA+ stable. Copy we provided to the town council in their packet for those that didn't get it tonight, as well as yourselves. It's out online in the finance website if anybody wants to read it. So it did have a few good things to say, but I think I left my copy somewhere. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it does say Rocky Hill has a very strong economy, has strong management with good financial policies and practices under, I guess, S&P's financial management assessment methodology, and so on. So it did say a lot of nice things about Rocky Hill and so on. And also want to thank Ray, who was here, and Mona, who put in quite a bit of work putting the presentation together, working with our financial advisor, Susan Karen, and organized a good 26-page PowerPoint demonstration that pretty much when we finished up, the rating agency didn't have any questions or anything. So they sort of like Rocky Hill. We follow our financial policies, even though they don't like our fund balance at the size it is. They always would like to see it higher. But they do see that we do follow the pattern, that we keep it above 5%, and we do move money yearly that exceeds 6% into the budget for capital improvements. So we had the bond sale yesterday, and Mona will review that if we're all set with the Standards & Poor's rating agency summary, which I think is a good read. Right, Ray? Ray, I thanked you and complimented you on how 25, 26 pages, it was like, I don't know, 15 pages of economic development stuff.
I didn't hear that. Can you repeat that again?
You'll have to listen to the tape, right?
It's
It was a
live.
good team presentation that showed it in, I thought, in our S&P report.
If it's okay with Chris and Jeff, why don't we go right into the ban and bond sale, and then we can ask questions on the two if there are any. So, go ahead, Mona.
Sure. I think you had in front of you a few handouts. So as we said, we did the ban and bond sale on Wednesday, the 14th. So first of all, the ban sale, the $2.2 million relating to the high school notes. So you can see we had 4 participants. The award went to Bank of New York Mellon, came in at 0.2287, which was actually about where we were expecting it to be in the market, quite comparable to what's happening. And you can see on the second page relating to the notes that came in with a premium of $41,895 for the note. They have a slight amount that we're going to pay for the underwriter's discount, so overall we did a very good job with the notes. So I'll jump on to the bond sale for $11.6 million. And for that, we were doing for the senior center, for the real property acquisition, and half of the new road improvement project. We had $4 million for that as well. So of that $11.6 million bond sale, we had 9 participants. And you can see that, they stayed basically where we were expecting them to be. And the award went to Janney Montgomery Scott for 1.705768. On the following page, we show the uses and sources of that bond. We want to point out that the bond sold for $11.6 million. So I'm going to look at the lower half of that where it says uses. You can see the $11.6 million bond, the underwriter discount $74,000. So we got $11 .675 of a bond. If you see above, there was actually a premium on that particular bond sale with Janney. So we are actually going to be paying back only the $10,640,000. So we use the premium to bring the bond payments down. So I attached the following 2 pages to show you what the payment plan would look like. We leveled it out so it looks even throughout the upcoming years. And then on the last page, again, bringing it back to rather than 11.6 million, we're paying back the 10.6 by using the premium to reduce the amount of bond payback.
Questions on items 2 or 3, 3 or
The
4?
key thing was, we were looking to try to level payback over 20 years instead of having these fluctuations in which, when we were using the premiums early in the offering, we'd see like lower principal and interest payments, and all of a sudden it spikes up high. This way here, it's right through, and then the premium proceeds will go directly to the project as a revenue source. So, so we're getting about 11.6 million, but we're only really paying back 10.6 million.
I assume there are no prepayment penalties for paying that $1 million up front?
No?
No,
By using that
no,
bank, no.
no, if you look at the schedule, I think we can't call the bonds for like for at least 6 or 7 years. So generally, if you look at the payment schedule, usually the interest rates are high the first 6 or 7 periods because the town can't call it. But then afterwards, depending on market conditions, we can always do a refunding on it. And then all of a sudden, you see the interest rates in the call period drop down into the 3s and 2s. But there's no payment penalty related to the premium that we're getting up front. So we're quite surprised. It came in, we thought it would come in around 1.7 because a couple of the towns earlier this week went out for that. And we came in slightly lower, but if you look at the spread, you know, it's like the winning bid was like 0.01 lower than the second place bid. So it was a very tight bid. It wasn't, I think it's like a 0.1 between the lowest and the highest bid. So we should get the cash in on Wednesday, the 28th.
28th.
We're all set. We got the community center bonded for the next 20 years payments.
My only questions were about the premium, and I think you did a good job of answering what we got and how we applied it.
John, we previously discussed also that we were going to do some bond refunding, refinancing. Is that
Right.
still in the works?
That's in the works. It has to have some sort of legislation passed in Washington DC, which usually is hooked up with that infrastructure bill.
Mhm.
So we're thinking that if the infrastructure bill passes, that will be attached to that, and then we'll be able to do a refunding on that. But we're sort of waiting for something to happen in Washington, and we think it's going to be triggered by the infrastructure bill.
Okay.
Then once that happens, then we'll refinance, I think, our oldest bonds that are out there. But yeah. And hopefully, all this that we've done on this, with as far as the rating agencies and the OSs and all that, would be able to be used for this refunding, so we're not going to incur additional costs, because we do have to pay for this rating on the bonds, but as we don't have to on bands.
How long does that rating agency report, is it good for? Is it 60 days, 90 days?
Well, it's probably good until you do your next bonding,
Okay. Okay.
or unless,
Or an audit.
unless the town blows up or we lose half.
Right.
Everybody moves out of Rocky Hill, something like that, some unforeseen activity.
Okay. All right, moving forward, we'll look at the discussion, possible action, budgetary transfer, Board of Education, item 5.
Just, okay, there's 2 pages associated with this. The first one is the second page, in which was a letter I received from the Superintendent, Mark Zito, relating to the Board of Ed's year-end surplus, which we discussed at their budget session, which they thought they'd come in around I think it was like 727,000, that they wanted to earmark that surplus amount for West Hill HVAC project. Plus, they were gonna send back $200,000 to the town's general fund to help us close out our books as a town overall. They also, when they closed their books, they found an additional $252,000 that they're requesting be transferred from the surplus in the general fund over to a non-reoccurring capital account set up for capital projects for the board to spend that money on projects that they so determine that needs to be done. So the resolutions basically are standard year-end resolution associated with the Board of Ed surpluses, the dollar amounts spelled out, as well as the uses of that money. So this resolution relates to that new $252,000 surplus that they calculated to have at the end of June 30th. So that's the basic story behind that, and the resolution, if approved, would just transfer this funds and set up a non-reoccurring account with the understanding it's under the determination of the Board of Ed.
Ready for a motion?
Yep, well, I'll entertain a motion, then we can go to discussion.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the Town Council Resolution of July 19th, 2021, Board of Education return of funds to the general fund and reserve for capital and non-recurring expenditures fund, Board of Education various school repairs and improvements in the amount of $252,640.
I will second.
Discussion?
Chris?
So the total of in the resolution, the 1.18, that is the previous money that was allocated, plus the new 252. That's correct?
The 1.8, the 1.1 includes let's call it the May resolution that included the 727 and the 200,000. And then to get to the 181, the 1.1, we added the new $252,000 of surplus.
So originally it was like 927, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, nothing further for me.
Okay. And, I was a little inquisitive, I guess is the right word. So I reached out to Brian Dillon to ask, who's the chair of the Board of Ed, and said, how did we end up with $1.1 million coming back? And the answer is COVID. These are savings related to COVID. As an example, after-school activities didn't take place, all the busing, school lunches weren't as regular. So it wasn't as though there was this extra money put into the budget and then all of a sudden it's coming back. It was for conditions that, were unexpected. So I just think it's important to note that we're not going crazy on our budgets, putting money in. This is related to COVID and is probably a blip in the schedule and won't be happening on an annual basis. So, having said that, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Mona, I guess you're back up, state aid to municipalities.
Okay. Yes,
Skip,
Did I skip 6?
Yes.
yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, reserve for capital and non-recurring expenditures, 6.
Okay,
Sorry.
After my glasses.
Yeah, the real items, just to point out, at the bottom of the school section, sort of is a reflection of the transfers that we talked about in the previous agenda item, where the 727 is set up for the West Hill HVAC project, and then the 252 for miscellaneous repairs. So that will boost up the fund balance about close to like $970,000. So it gets us back up to about $1.8 million for year end going forward. Just a couple other items just to point out, up in the town section, You can see sort of like a little bit below, halfway through the police equipment, body cameras. The town council did shuffle some of the money above from that $200,000 that we had as a reserve in the 1920 budget year down to buy the cameras, the body cameras as well as the car cameras. And then we were able to secure a grant through OPM for about $87,000. And I believe that was associated with the bonding issue, and it was approved, and the town did receive $87,000 in funding from OPM. So that's sitting in our bank account. So we do have a reserve of $87,550 going forward to associated with the body car camera project. So that's probably going to be tied into additional cameras on cars and maybe some of the non-patrol officers, as well as the storage and record keeping of these tapes. And the other one's just a couple lines down, is that school roof replacement program that the board was talking about 2 budgets ago, in which we set up $800,000 to replace the roof at Stevens School, and it came in much less. And so it came in about $560,000, of which we received to date $189,000 of it back through a school building construction grant, which we were supposed to get 45% of the budget back. But also in that line item, we also took $230,000 and sent it back to the Board of Ed, probably around January, February time period, associated with some of their COVID expenses. But we do end up with like $192,000 balance to move forward if they want to plan on doing other schools' roof. I thought they want to do West Hill or even Griswold under the same arrangement where we would get 46% of the money reimbursed from the state. So that's the closing of the non-reoccurring account for 2020-21.
Questions for John? Jeff?
Just real quick, on the roof program for the schools, so do we know when that goes until, or is there not an end date where you have to have it in by?
I think it's, I don't think it has an end date. I think it's one of these smaller projects that doesn't
Okay.
have as much red tape associated
So we
with it.
can continue to take advantage of that as we need to.
So that's what I would hope, that some of this 252, they may do that, and then, then get, some more money and keep rolling
Yep.
it along. But I don't think there's as of yet, drop dead date. I think it's open going forward.
And we may not know the answer to this yet, because I know there's so many moving parts, but the HVAC replacement for West Hills, are there potential reimbursements from COVID money from the Relief Act and things like that?
I think they're using some COVID money as like a part of the construction cost.
Mhm.
So they were going for an ESA 2 grant that was going to cover about half the costs of that.
Okay.
Going forward, I don't know if they have any other ones available, and I thought they had at least one, plus there's money budgeted in this current year's budget for additional HVAC costs.
Okay. Thanks.
All good? All right. Now we'll move forward to 7, Mona.
Okay. So yes, this is the last report for this year for state revenue, and we're pleased to say that all the revenue did come in as planned. I think we probably just point out that the LoCIP, 114,000 shows not received, but just noting that that's based on reimbursement if it's used, and at this point, that'll go into next year to be available for any projects. If there's any questions, that's the end of 6/30/21 for state aid.
So pretty much everything came in
Everything's in,
on time,
on time,
on budget.
on budget. It's a good time.
There's always a first.
Don't jinx us.
So outside of the tranche money we're getting under the American Rescue Plan Act, the state funding, we're probably not going to get that until, looks like what, pilot and first ECS grants come in October of this year?
That's
Is that the
right.
plan?
Yes.
There's more for next year. The Mashantucket grant, are we anticipating smaller amounts this coming year, or do we have any idea? Just knowing how the casinos were hurt pretty heavily.
Well, we had still budgeted
Yeah.
according to the governor's budget that it wouldn't change. So at this point, no change
Oh.
yet.
Okay, good.
And to that, because I had the same concern, but I wonder about with the online sports betting, if that's going to contribute to the Mashantucket grant. I don't know, but that might be a way to offset what they're losing in person.
And any variation would be additional to what we had budgeted, because we had budgeted at this point, according to the governor's budget, which was to keep it the same. The only thing into the 21-22 that had changed was the ECS, and then what was the new formula for the pilot. So we had those two line items changing. Otherwise, everything is budgeted as a no change. If it increases, that would be additional for us.
Move on to item 8, the monthly financial report.
Okay. So our first page, we will look at the tax collector's report. And we've closing out the year with a collection rate of 99.7. And considering that we've done a deferral and some delays, it's an exceptional collection rate for this fiscal year. It's actually an exceptional collection rate for any fiscal year, so we're really happy with that. Motor vehicle supplemental came in at 93%. I think we were struggling, going slowly at first, and closing out the year in a good place with that as well. So overall, we couldn't be happier with the tax collection. And just, if you'd note, probably in that far right corner with the benchmark, it looked like we're going in the opposite direction rather than forward. We had to make some adjustments for just some court stipulations, which say that if a couple of taxpayers that had adjustments, that the refunds go into the following year. So just if you notice that we were going down instead of up, that is a deliberate transaction that we had posted there. Okay. So the following page on all other revenues, again with the tax bringing us to a very good place. And as we expected, interest was in a very bad place at 11%. And again, we were monitoring that all year, and it's exactly what was predicted. All other line items, I think, came about where we had expected. The conveyance coming in on the higher side, and the building permits slightly lower, but being offset by the other lines. So overall, our revenue is at 97.5%. We will, when we look at the expenditure side, probably use some of those transfers to balance out between revenue and expenditures, but most likely when we finalize the financials, not the entire 941 and the 480. It'll probably be maybe about $300,000 or $400,000 less than that. Okay. I'll go forward onto the expenditure summary. Grab another page. Okay. And you see, this is an unaudited, so we still have expenditures coming in, but I wanted to show you where we are right now. We have some larger bills still coming in. We have, for example, the trash collection bills coming in. We have some legal bills coming in, and departments are still sending in a few stragglers. But for the most part, I'd say we have about 98% of our invoices and the salaries shown in this, so we've got a good idea where we're going to end. So at 96.7%, very well, should be under budget. That's what our goal was. Obviously was watching what was happening on the revenue side. Some of those that come in a little bit over, we have for example personnel. That was more on some training and some turnover on some support service fees for the police department and that type of service fees that they had. We've, again, legal slightly over, and otherwise, nothing terrible standing out for the most part. Those that we watched come in on the lower side, such as the senior services and those that were affected by COVID. So you can see our contingency came in almost fully expended. Again, that was a lot of the retirements. Also on education, I'll just point out, at this point, we're reflecting the $1,180,000 as a remaining balance. That was just pending the approval of the transfer that we discussed earlier. So once we get that posted, you'll see the $980,000 come off of the balance for that.
And capital improvements, we were way under, so did we delay some projects, or?
Well, so we will probably come back in the next meeting and see if we want to do some transfers.
Yeah, part of it was touched on with LoSup,
Mhm.
where we spent the bulk of our LoSup money associated with the streetscape project.
Yep.
And they didn't really do any sidewalk projects because of that. And so that, because we didn't expend it, and we didn't get any revenue in it, so that's part of the balance there, as well as we do have some extra money in school
Education,
improvements.
yeah.
About $200,000 of capital improvement associated with the school line. But, so that gets us about halfway there, then we just, you got that town road aid money
Yes.
that you have to.
Right, we have a town road aid that's, right, yeah, which is about 300,000. A lot of the salt treatment goes out of the highway and sanitation line, and then for audit purposes, we'll move that into town road aid to match it up with its grant purpose. So you'll see a journal entry transfer to absorb a piece of that. That's about 150,000 on that line alone.
Okay, so the 150,000, 104, 200 puts us right about 400 or 500.
Correct.
Okay.
Just a couple quickies. Sanitation, about 95,000. Is that just because we're waiting for more bills to come, or?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
So that June.
Okay. And employee benefits, about 218,000 below. Is that also, there's,
That's final, that's the
That's fine.
final
Yeah, that's
dollar
more
amount.
savings on the health
Insurance.
insurance. For some reason, we got a good savings on our social security contributions.
Right,
And I think those were the two drivers that supported that. We'd like to see the health insurance come in with a surplus, but that
yeah.
works to our advantage when we have, on the other side, when we have transition from people leaving until we get a higher, we budget for 12 months, so we may only pick up a couple
Right.
months there, and
Yep.
it's healthy.
Chris, anything for you on these?
No, just kind of following up with Councilor Levine's review of some of the items. I was a little surprised, I think, to see the facility building maintenance at 80,000 right now, because especially during the middle of COVID, it seemed like there's a lot of deep cleaning that was happening. Is that because we have some bills outstanding as well? Or is that
Actually,
offset with
yeah.
other grants?
actually, all the, any of that deep cleaning, and still, we have some of that COVID money that came through from the state. So any overtime, that he'll come forward and ask if he can use any of that COVID funding, so that won't impact his budget. So
So-
at this point,
So do we think that 80 is probably close to final?
it is.
Thanks. We got all the utilities, right? 12 months of utilities?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
yeah.
We did have, right, the utilities did come in very well, just kind of as a side note, that we still are seeing some of that savings coming through for the solar energy. We're watching that, and we did go into the consortium with with CROG on a couple of our accounts. So even though it was later in the year, that a lot of this is just, we're seeing the impact of that as well.
And just along the Board of Education saw significant savings on their side. Did we see anything similar on the town side with buildings being, I'm not seeing it as like a giant number here, with buildings being closed, people working remote?
No, 'cause,
No,
I mean,
it
we
didn't.
had the buildings open, for the most part anyway. I mean, we saw mostly the senior center and the activities.
I think your friends at Eversource gives the credits more to the Board of Ed's bills than they do to the
We might want
towns.
to debate that one,
And,
yes.
We fight them for that, and I think
We do.
we won a few battles.
We did. We did receive a
They did.
reimbursement from the Board of Ed on utilities, so that's, we'll give them credit for that. Not necessarily the amount we wanted, but we did.
All right, so, and just to kind of carry it forward, I know you've mentioned that you started the preliminary audit process.
Right.
And the audit process will be starting in earnest
In September, correct?
September?
Early, right after Labor Day.
That's
Maybe
right.
the
Okay.
second weekend.
September 7th.
They like to come to us first, so,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Keep you on your toes that way.
yeah.
Always.
All right. Item 9, update legal bills.
Yep, there's a schedule in there, sort of reflects pretty much how the legal bills stand through May, and we're starting to get the June bills in probably next week, get those incorporated to the next report. So that reflects 11 months of expenditures.
Any questions on legal?
You can do the,
Want to do the bid?
Other than just seeing how close we are to wrapping up the mannequin case,
I was gonna ask you that.
might outlast all of us.
Well, they are mannequins.
so
Just keep them inside.
put on the table an additional agenda item associated with a sidewalk bid that engineering went out for.
Yes, we do that under other.
And
Yes,
if we
if
could
you're
put it
ready.
under other, that'd be great, and then it will be, if it's approved here, it will be on the town council's consent agenda so that they can start some of the sidewalk repairs. Mona was involved in the bidding process, so give us a brief.
Yes. So, yes, we did do the sidewalk bid. It was opened on July 6th. You can see we had 6 vendors came in. We had advertised in the local paper as well as on the state DAS to get a variety of input. And we also got quite a range of bids as well, going from our awarded bid $54,120 and ranging upward to $111,000 on that bid. So the engineering department went through and vetted the vendors. They've experienced with West Pro. They've checked and they've selected that the lowest bid is the best bid, and they would like to award to West Pro for sidewalk construction for the year $54,120. And this is going out of their LoCIP funds for the 21-22 budget year.
Do we have a motion to?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve the town council resolution for July 19, 2021, award of bid sidewalk construction and repairs in the amount of $54,120 to West Pro Limited, 242 Elm Street in Weathersfield, Connecticut.
Second,
Discussion?
do we have sidewalks that are earmarked for construction and repairs during the season? Or which, are we able to speak to which ones those are?
Yeah, they do have some, like, right across the street, there's one of those bubble things that are falling apart, and they're gonna fix that. And I know they have a number of small projects that they need to do, and maybe, sometimes they do if they need to connect, they'll do that, but they do have a few.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Our favorite item, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.